Hello, in this video we will be going over how to create a test, add questions to a test, and set test options to deploy to a content area. First, within your content area, go to Assessments and choose Test. On the Create Test screen, press the Create button. Give your test a title. Also, in the space below, you can provide a description to your test, as well as instructions your students will be presented with before taking the test. Once you have provided a name, description, and instructions, press Submit. On the Test Canvas page, you can add questions. The Create Question button shows all question types available to be added to your test. For this example, we will create a true or false question, a matching question, a fill-in-the-blank question, and a multiple choice question. First, I will go over true or false. From the Create Question drop-down, select True or False from the options. In the space provided for question text, add the question text for your question. Once you have added your question text, select whether or not this question is true or this question is false. This question is true, so I will leave my radio button selected to true. Now that you have filled out all of the options for a true or false question, press Submit. Your question has now been added to the test. Next, let's try a multiple choice question. From Create Question, choose Multiple Choice. And much like the true or false question, we'll provide the question text first. Then, in the answers area below, we can provide the options for this multiple choice question. Once you have provided options for the multiple choice question, click the correct radio button next to the answer that is correct. Now that you've provided question text and a correct answer, scroll to the bottom and press Submit. The question has now been added to your test. Now, let's try adding a matching question. From Create Question, select Matching. Much like we have done for the previous questions, add the text to your question. Scroll down to the Questions section to fill in the questions and answers for this matching question. This will be generated in two vertical columns. The questions will be on the left, and the answers to match with will be scrambled to the right. Your questions and answer pairings can be entered in the question-answer pair 1, 2, 3, and 4 boxes. If you need more than 4, up at the top you can choose number of questions and choose how many questions you would like to have on this matching question. For now, I will add 4 question-answer pairs. Now that you have added questions and answer pairs, simply scroll to the bottom of the question screen and press Submit. Your question has been added to the test. Now, to add a fill-in-the-blank question, go to Create Question and choose Fill-in-the-blank. Once again, we'll fill in our question text, and at the bottom, provide the answer to the question. Now that you have added a question and an answer, scroll to the bottom once again and press Submit to add this question to your test. Our test now has 4 questions, and I'm ready to deploy it to my content area. Press the OK button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll be brought back to the Create Test page. The test 1 that we have just created is already selected on the Add an Existing Test area. Press Submit. On this page, any description we had added is pulled into the Content Link Description field, and you can also set Test Options. Test Options determine the settings for students when they take a test. Here we can determine if students are able to see the description and instructions before they start the test. Also, we can set some availability options. Make the link available yes or no determines manually whether the students can see this test. Choosing yes to add an announcement will make an announcement in your course indicating that this test is available. Multiple attempts allows you to set a certain number or unlimited attempts for students to take this test. Forced completion makes it so students must complete this test in one sitting without closing the window. This setting can cause problems if students have an unstable internet connection or if a student closes a window accidentally. Typically, we recommend leaving forced completion off. Set Timer allows you to set a timer on your test for however many minutes you like. Auto Submit On will force the test to submit once the time limit, in this case 60 minutes, has elapsed. A display after and display until date can be checked off and set to make your test visible between a certain period of time. For example, if I set this test to be available from December 9th at 1 a.m. and display it until December 13th at 10 p.m. The test will appear for students on the 9th at 1 a.m. and disappear on the 13th at 10 p.m. Also, exceptions can be added to tests. By clicking Add User or Group, the instructor can add a certain student or group of students that can be an exception to these test options. For example, if I select Andrew Hino 2 and press Submit, I can change how many attempts he can make, set the timer for him, auto-submit on or off for them, change the availability dates, and also determine whether or not I want to force complete him. These options are especially useful for students that require accommodations. The fourth option is due date. Here you can set a date and time that the test is due. Students will see this on their course calendar as well as on their To Do module of the What's New and Due page. When a due date is set, you can also select the Do Not Allow Students to Start the Test if Due Date Has Passed option. Selecting this option will mean that students cannot start the test after the due date has passed. On step 6, you are able to set test result and feedback options. These settings determine what students see once they submit their test. By default, after a student submits their test, they'll see the score that they received and nothing else. Selecting All Answers will allow students to see options such as A, B, C, or D that could have been chosen. Choosing Correct will show students the correct answer, and Submitted will show students what they chose as an answer. Selecting all 4 checkboxes basically gives your students the graded test. You can also choose when they can receive these results. After submission is the default option, but you can choose to allow them to see the results only once, after a specific date, after the due date, after the test is no longer visible, or after all attempts made to this test have been graded. You can also select how the questions will be delivered to your students. By default, all questions will appear on the screen at once. You can also select one at a time. When you select one at a time, you can even prohibit backtracking. This prevents students from going backwards in their test, forcing them to only move on to next questions as opposed to being able to move back. Randomized questions will shuffle the questions for each student, meaning that my 1 might be another student's question 5. Press Submit once you have set your test options and your test has been deployed to your content area.